Good evening, everyone. Can I please call for a motion and a second to reconvene the public meeting?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence to honor our servicemen and women? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Will the district clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Torregrossa?
Present.
Ms. DiLorenzo?
Present.
Ms. Napolitano-Furno?
Present.
Ms. Mallon?
Present.
Dr. Centermore?
Present.
Mr. Kolahifar?
I am very happy to be here.
Ms. Poppy?
Present.
Mr. Hauser?
Present.
Thank you. Can I please have a motion and a second to accept the minutes of the March 17, 2025 meeting?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We will hand the floor over to Mr. Hauser, who will do a budget presentation on the proposed revenues and expenditures budget. Mr. Hauser?
Thank you. All right, so this is actually the fifth presentation about the 2025-26 budget. But as you're going to see, this is the second draft of the actual budget that we will be presenting. So for tonight, we're going to do a brief overview or a brief review of staffing, and then we will also review the proposed revenues and expenditures within the budget. Here's the normal calendar slide that we present each time. I highlighted in yellow where we are. Just in case anyone in the audience doesn't have a copy, there's a chair back there with copies on it if you'd like to take one. So what I did, I highlighted today, March 25th in yellow. The first line is what I just said, the proposed revenues and expenditures, but the second line was the state legislative budget. We thought, although it's still a little early, we might have a final state aid number from the legislature, but we don't, unfortunately. So we expect that, I'll say, in the next week. It would be nice to get that number by Friday if they could do it. So we're about, I'd say, a month away from actually adopting the budget, the board adopting the final proposed budget, and we're about 60 days, a little less away from the actual budget vote on May 20th. Next slide, please. Okay, here's a snapshot or a summary of the actual budget in terms of, up on the top there is the proposed expenditure budget. And then as we work our way down, are the revenues that will be needed to actually support that budget. Up at the top, if carried all the way over to the right, we're sitting at a 2.79% increase for the budget year to year. And then if you go down to the line that's highlighted in blue, that's the amount of the tax levy to support the budget. Right now, we're at the maximum of what's called the tax cap, which would be 1.34%. The shortfall in yellow, if you follow that line all the way over to where the yellow and the green meets, we're sitting at about 354,000 that we're going to be looking at to actually get ourselves to a balanced budget. So we're hoping, as I mentioned before, the state legislature coming through with a final state aid number that we might get that extra 1%, and that would bring us to a nice happy place to balance the budget. Okay, staffing and class sizes. We'll talk about the high school, the middle schools, and the elementary schools. Dr. Centermore or Reza, do you want to elaborate a little on this slide here?
I could speak to it, Bob. So obviously,
Class sizes at all level, K through 12, something that's always been very important to the district, to the Board of Education, Superintendent, my cabinet, and certainly, building administration, departmental administration, working with our teaching staff. So while we're still about $350,000 away from the balanced budget, and we'll talk about state aid and more with some upcoming slides, we're in a very good place, very conducive place with our standards in terms of class sizes at all levels. And, in terms of as we try to get to a balanced budget, looking to take advantage of retirements, especially, amongst the instructional staff. And, we did experience, it was one of Mr. House's presentations earlier, which is available on the website. And also the video. A little bit of an enrollment decline, so a little bit of drop in sections at the elementary level, a little bit of revamping, restructuring of some of the academic intervention and coaching, and we're able to take advantage of 4 of the elementary retirements in terms of full attrition, and then across the district take advantage of a little over 1.5 of the physical education retirements as that scheduling takes place. And in terms of attrition in general, even for the positions that we are going to replace, and there are a lot that we're still going to replace, you do generally experience what's called breakage. Generally, someone who is retiring will be making a greater salary than somebody who's just coming on board, and so that's called breakage, and that's definitely helpful when we're putting a budget together during budget development. So, that does occur even when we are replacing the position. And most of the retirements are being, what did we have, Mr. Koliva, 16, 17? 17 from that particular unit. And obviously most are going to be replaced.
Great. So the next slide here, we're just highlighting really on a positive note here that this proposed budget maintains all academic programs, athletics, and even our extracurricular programs, as well as any services that we provide to the students. So no change there. However, we are looking and we feel confident that we will be able to add one more section to our universal pre-K program. That should equate to a section of about 18 students.
So, only because I was going to ask it later, but now. So I had sent an email, which I appreciate, and I spoke to both of you in regards. When I was looking at the budget, there's the increase of $294,235 from last year. But that money can only be used for the UPK, it looks like.
So are you referring to the amount of state aid that's coming in?
That's
correct,
coming in extra.
for UPK. Yep.
Right, and it's isolated to just that. So how much is just 18 kids? Is there any way across our district, because I do know that there's an uptick this year in the amount of students that put in for the UPK, and I always felt very good about when my kids were younger and they got chosen out of the lottery. I always felt it would be nice if people over the years advocated for more. If we have this state aid and we can only use it for UPK, this would be a perfect year to make it bigger if possible, even if it meant utilizing another elementary school, if there's another elementary school that has any classrooms availability.
Okay, so this is a great question, and let's come back to this slide. Let's go to the next slide that is on UPK. No, that's okay. It all ties in because it was like a precursor on this slide to a little bit more detail on the next slide. And I'm going to ask Ms. Poppy and also Mr. Hauser, you can kind of tag team on this a little bit, to kind of speak to how the UPK state aid works, what we've been able to maximize with it, where its limitation lies, and then we could take the conversation from there. And these numbers up here might help guide that conversation.
I'm sorry, this is the first I'm seeing this, so I didn't know.
Okay, so if I may, every year we, for lack of a better way to say it, we leave money on the table in terms of our state allocation for UPK. The state does, though, restrict the amount that we're able to spend on each section of UPK. So if you'll notice in the slide that's projected now, our proposal is to expand from our current 11 sections of UPK serving 190 students to a 12th section of UPK wherein we would service 208 students total. The sections contain 18 students. We do carry one integrated co-taught section in one of the elementary buildings. And so that particular section is co-taught by a scope employee as well as a district employee. It's part of our 4410 program. So that's the only hybrid, and we don't fill all 18 seats from the UPK money for that particular section. So that's where you'll notice the difference in terms of the student totals. As I mentioned, the UPK grant allows for the district, to expend $5,400 per section. And anything that is over that amount is on the district to cover the total cost. And so the district does have a responsibility towards Scope Education Services, which is our community-based organization that provides UPK within our buildings. And so we do support that through the general fund. Last year, we were able to use COVID monies, which were federal grant monies, to pay this difference, right? So we didn't feel the impact on the general fund. This year, with the expiration of those COVID grants, we do have to assume those costs within the general fund. So that number is sitting at $122,600. That's the district's level of responsibility. An increased section load to include that 12th section would be another approximately $7,000.
What's that number you just gave us? That's the district's
So
level?
the district's responsibility is $122,600.
Oh, I got it. I got the right number.
Got that?
Okay. Yep.
And then the increased section would give us another $7,000 on top of that. It's $69.95. Plus, we have to provide the furniture, and annually I have to guarantee that we provide the curriculum materials. So all in all, you're looking at approximately $15,000, just over $15,000 for the additional section, the furniture to outfit the classroom, as well as the curriculum materials.
I understand that. And I also see that we added the one section and we have to do it in, it looks like, classes of 18, correct?
Correct.
So what I'm saying is, how many kids put in this year?
So we have the grand total. Now, we had a lottery deadline, and 271 applicants will participate in our lottery. But we have 281 now total applicants because it's rolling, right? So we don't turn off the application system. 281 total applicants.
So that's my point. I know that we won't be able to cover all of them, unfortunately, because we also have the space issue, which I was told was part of the problem last year when I wanted to expand before. We also had the state aid that came in low. But when you come in with 294,000 plus on the table, it would be nice if we could do at least one more or even two more sections. Is there a way to open up another elementary? I know we do the two. We've been doing that for years. And I know we also moved from Cherokee to Slocum at one point because we were trying to, that Cherokee was bursting at the seams and still is. But I'm just trying to understand, if we have the 294,000 this year, and that's going to come in to cover, are we able to still pull more from that in 18, in the classrooms of 18? I understand that's to be 18. Even if we can't get the 281, because I do know there's also people who, when they've gotten the lottery, after they've gotten it, they decide against it because either they don't want it at that school, or they also, and sometimes they swap or they work it out. But also there are people who decide last minute, I want my child to go full day. I know people who did that. They didn't want the 3 hours, they wanted it something much longer. That was the other idea. Is there any thinking of doing things as a longer day for the kids that are in there?
Our current UPK day, and we've shifted a little bit, so it's a 5-hour school day within our elementary school day. So the program starts at either 9:30 or 9:50. One program starts a little bit earlier. That's the program that has the ICT classroom embedded within it. And then it runs for 5 hours. So those students are dismissed before our bus runs come through those elementary buildings, right? So it's a full day, and I'll put some air quotes around full day, but we don't have an expanded experience, for instance, offering before or after care for our UPK students.
But have there been any talks to expand more than just one section since we have all this money?
So there's a couple of things here. You have the allotment from the UPK grant funding, but it's limited per section. It's one of the things that the legislature, whether it's the House, the Assembly, or both, they're trying to get some kind of flexibility up in Albany so that districts like Connecticut can maximize this money and not leave money on the table. So that could happen. Now, if that happens, we do have a couple of classrooms and a couple of buildings, probably Slocum, right, where we could look to add 1 or 2 sections. The other thing is, let's say that doesn't happen, we don't get any more flexibility from Albany. Let's say we get that 1% of additional foundation aid that Bob will talk about further in one of the upcoming slides. We're still chipping away. So we know essentially our out-of-pocket is about $15,000, $15,300 between the section itself, the furniture, the curriculum, other supplies. So we may be able to do that. But knowing that the lottery is tomorrow, we wanted to, say, hey, at a minimum, we have this one extra one that we know we were able to figure out. And then certainly, there'll be people on a list. If we're able to add another 1 or 2, then that'll be great.
I would just like to see it after, like I said, seeing 294,000 coming from the state. If the aid is there, I'm saying we can use it. Like, I understand what you're saying, that it's set. I know but you can use it. I'm saying it's the money to use. If we don't, I understand what you're saying about making sections, and I get it. But I'm saying we can still chip away at more. The money is there.
We are trying to chip away if we're able to, and we get that 1% extra foundation aid. We would like to try to add, what are we at, 12, a 13 section, maybe a 14 section.
I mean, I guess at the end of the day, right, my question would be, let's say we had unlimited funds, would we have the space to accommodate all these extra sections?
So the spatial consideration is a biggie, right? And aside from, a teacher's desk and another desk in the room for a classroom aide, you're looking at really outfitting spaces, right? But having the spaces to begin with is the question in hand. I don't know necessarily. We would have to do an in-depth survey of our 7 elementary buildings and really consider space utilization and how things could be amended, right? If we had, in the instance that we had unlimited funds. We've also never had this level of demand on UPK, right? So 3 years ago, we were advertising year round because we had open seats, right? But we were still paying for the section. And come last year, it was the first, or this school year rather, it was the first time where we've had a standing waiting list of more than 18 students, right? So this is a fairly novel experience for us, and certainly we've never had this level of applications that have been submitted for the lottery and for the program in general. So this is sort of new territory, and the question arises in my mind, how do we strike a fair balance here? Is this going to be the trend forever, right? Or is this something that's novel? Is this, a COVID bump? Is this a new phenomenon? Are people really finding out about UPK and having that interest that wasn't there before? There are a lot of questions that factor in here, for me at least.
Now, the money that we get, that 294,000 plus, is you can't use it is that money only to be used for the educating of the student, for the child itself, and for scope? Or can it be used to help outfit different sections so that we have rooms available for them? I don't mean building on, I mean if we find space in classrooms, like you're saying, we have an elementary school that has 2 extra classrooms that we're able to utilize for this, and we need to outfit it. Could we draw funds from there, or no, those funds are strictly for?
So that goes back to our contract with Scope Education Services, right? We have provided certain guarantees of what we would provide, and they have offered in turn what they would provide. And that goes back to that contractual language that we have with Scope.
Thank you. I have one last question. I had emailed you, Mrs. Poppy, and I had said, are we increasing enrollment or making any additional sections? Are there any plans to expand this year and in years to come due to the uptick in financial aid that can only be used for UPK? So if in the future we get this 294, 235, if it becomes a trend and we start getting state aid like that, we looking towards the future and in the years to come to expand more in advance. Like we're looking at it now with tomorrow being the date that the lottery will be drawn. But are we looking at this in the future, like in July, in August, if we already know that they're going to be, I know that state aid is always up and down, but I'm saying if we know that this is a spot where they're giving us increases to try to, it looks like they're trying to, for us to bring in more students. So is it something we're going to do more, even putting it out there, so more students, because I do feel like that's why more students put in. A lot of times, like last year, a lot of times people didn't know until we then said, hey, there's 8 spots left, there's 10 spots left. Then you ended up getting not the 10 spots, but 30 spots. I don't know, when we opened it up again, I don't know if that was 2 years ago or last year. 2 years ago, right?
So it really comes down to consistent revenue streams. And if you study last year to this year, Bob has an upcoming slide on the tax levy increase, which we're thrilled for our taxpayers about. But it speaks to the inconsistencies in the ebb and flow in New York State when it comes to the funding of public education, where you don't know, from one year to the next, what your formula is going to be for the tax levy. So one year you could be a 3, one year you could be a 1. And then with state aid, with the core piece being foundation aid, last year we had a 0% increase. This year it's a 2, maybe we're going to get a 3. So you have this constant ebb and flow, which makes it very difficult to do this early planning. And so you kind of put on the spot, and it's not just Connecticut, of kind of as you go. The goal is to try to expand it. Space is, space is not unlimited. But if we had the, ability to add a section or 2, we would like to do that. And hopefully that could come to fruition.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Sure. So, so towards the bottom here, we're able to keep this budget, the increase below 3%, and I think I actually said 2.79 was the actual increase so far. However, at the bottom of this slide, I put 4, I'll say, significant items, expenditures that the increases are way beyond that 2.79%. One of them is health insurance and benefits for our active employees and our retirees. Looking at over 8% increase there. When it comes time to the pension systems, and we belong to 2 pension systems, the employee retirement system and then the teachers retirement system, we're looking at significant increases, especially in the employee retirement system. Transportation, and unfortunately, although we do have a great in-house transportation fleet and some very dedicated many dedicated bus drivers and aides. When we are not able to operate our own school buses because we just can't get enough bus drivers or aides on the buses, we have to go out and contract with, in this case, with Suffolk Transportation. So that tends to cost us more when we go outside to contract with an outside transportation company. And then the last thing is with our capital projects, as we borrow money to complete those capital projects, we borrow what's called a BAN, a bond anticipation note. At some point, we do have to make a principal payment on those bond payments, and this happens to be the first year that we're making an actual significant principal payment. So, we're trying to deal with these increases, but try to keep the budget in line with the tax cap. So we just thought we'd highlight that. Okay, the tax levy increase. So on the third slide, I had highlighted in blue that the amount to be raised by taxes is 1.34%, which is in line with the maximum amount for the tax cap. If we go back a year ago, that amount was 3.29%. So we are asked occasionally, why the difference? Why was last year 3.29% and now all of a sudden the taxes are only going to be increased 1.34%? So without getting into too much detail about the tax cap formula, there is a section in that formula where as you get aid on your building projects, so as we spend the monies to complete the building projects, the state gives us back aid. Unfortunately, we have to deduct that aid in the tax cap calculation. In this particular year, we've completed a significant number of projects, but in turn, we're getting a significant amount of aid. So that is driving the tax cap down to that 1.34%. So that's the primary factor in there. There's other numbers in there that don't affect it as much, but that's the main number. Next. Okay, so state aid. When we talk about state aid here, there's about a dozen different line items that make up state aid. One of them we spoke about was the UPK, but in particular, the biggest one is foundation aid for us. So this year, when the governor came out with her proposed budget, she proposed a 2% increase in foundation aid, which we're very thankful for. Last year it was 0% increase. However, we are, I'll say, optimistic and hopeful that we might get an additional 1%. And that 1% would translate to about $360,000 for us. I believe I showed the shortfall was about 354. So higher mathematics, we would come in right around zero if it did work out. So we're just trying to be positive here. The state budget starts April 1st, so we're a week away from when they actually have to get off the ground and running. So hopefully they'll tell us what our final aid number will be. Okay, and this is really the last slide before. There's a lot of detailed slides behind here that give you the actual numbers. But any questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hauser. Do we have student government?
Hello. Okay, I'm Michaela, one of the Board of Ed reps from the high school, sharing a few upcoming events. Our March Madness basketball tournament event went great, and we had a great turnout. We made a lot of money, and we got a lot of donations from our local community. We're hoping to do this amazing event next year as well. Hopefully, in this week's student government meeting, we will be deciding and finalizing what we do for our next Spirit Week. That's the Spirit Week leading up to, I believe, the spring recess. Speaking of Spirit, the high school's drama club and stage crew had a fantastic time putting on our production of Legally Blonde. There were a lot of hair flips and singing, but I had an incredible time working alongside the actors. I can confidently say that there weren't a lot of empty seats every show night. And finally, senior parking spots for the class of 2026 will be coming on sale in April. More information to come on specific dates, price, etc. Thank you for giving me your time today. Have an amazing night.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Legally Blonde was excellent. Everyone did an amazing job. Cast, crew, pit, everybody was really excellent.
Do we have an Orba rep here tonight? SEPTA? PTA Council? Okay. I will now open the floor for the first public comment portion of the agenda. An additional public comment period will be held later in the evening. I will call individuals forward one at a time. Please wait for my acknowledgement before stepping up to the podium. Any person wishing to address the board shall address the board president. Comments should be kept as brief as possible. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes for one or more topics. Individual employees, parents, or children should not be identified by name, title, position, grade, or building. Use of foul language and threatening comments will not be tolerated, and the board will consider a recess until order is restored. In accordance with Policy 1230, public comment will not exceed 30 minutes. If there are additional persons wishing to speak, the board may consider a motion to extend the time. Number 1. Number 2. Sir, you're always welcome. Come on up.
After the children are chosen for the lottery, there are children that don't make it, right? And I don't know if it's legal. Can we charge? There's a lot of private schools in the area that are charging pre-kindergarten. There's even, I know a lady in Sayville that runs a program. She was an ex-teacher, and she charges well. But I don't know if we're allowed to do that. What's the legality?
Hey, I honestly don't know the answer to that, but it's something we can look into.
Just a question.
Yeah, thank you.
You
We'll
know,
definitely look into that.
right?
And I don't believe we're allowed to charge in the UPK program setting. It's possible we could, separate from that, but then we would be operating 2 different programs at the district. I don't know if we want to.
I don't know. Just a question.
Yep.
Because there's a whole group of students out there that didn't get in, and I'm sure there's a lot of parents sending them to local private schools.
That was why, and that's why when I was asking, there's well over $100,000 that is available to be pulled from if we have these, 75 plus students that are additional. It would be great if we could figure out a space issue, since the state's giving us that money anyway this year, and cover the cost for all of them. But it's all a matter of figuring out if there's a space for all of them.
Right, I know, that's another problem.
Right, because we really would want to, it would be great to do it in-house, since they're already giving us that money, and we may not be able to take the money that the state aid gives us. We can't just say we're going to pick a school and pay for it.
I thought that the school here on Smithtown Avenue wasn't really that heavily occupied. The one it's Church and Smithtown Avenue.
Oh yeah, John Pearl.
Okay.
John Pearl actually, they house RUPK, wasn't it? John Pearl, and it was. I know we've had Slocum had it.
We have
UPK.
sections running in Idlehour, John Pearl, which is the building on Smithtown Avenue, Slocum Elementary, and Boston Elementary. Those are the 4 campuses.
Okay. Just looking for a way to make money.
Thank you, sir. Can I please call for a motion and a second to approve the instructional and non-instructional personnel items as presented?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can I call for a motion and a second to approve items 2 through 4 of the consent agenda?
Motion.
Any questions from the board? All in favor?
Special ed committee.
Yep.
You guys want me to ask the questions that I have for special ed at the subject 4 for the committee meetings? Since that's what it was.
Well, do you have a particular question on that consent agenda, or do you want to just save your discussion item?
I can save it, but it's going to be off of special ed, but I can save it
Okay.
because I can answer from this.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have the superintendent's update, Dr. Centimore.
Well, thank you very much. So last night we had the wonderful opportunity to celebrate one of our outstanding custodians right here at the central office, Mr. Jim Bannon, and I'll let the board speak further on that. I know they're anxious to do so. We heard from our student government how wonderful the High School Musical was, continuing the great theater tradition here in Connecticut. Legally Blonde was fantastic, and like our board members said, congratulations to all the student performers, the crew, and the staff. Put on 3 amazing performances, and you're right, there weren't too many empty seats. It was really, really wonderful. Thank you to the Suffolk County Water Authority on their STEM presentations to several of our science and math classes as part of Women's History Month. A panel of 4 female employees, including Miss Mallon, from various backgrounds provided a great deal of information not only on the services of the Water Authority, I learned a lot too, but also on the many career pathways as well as internship and summer job opportunities for all students. Very cool. Idle Hour had a successful makerspace fair, and Principal Rubin put out a challenge, and I believe over 70 students participated, which led to her own principal challenge that was highlighted by News 12, where she was elevated off the floor, and the science worked with the duct tape, and she was about 2 feet off the floor. She was a very good sport about that, and the kids had some really incredible makerspace STEM projects. It was awesome. We had an 8th grade student named Amelia at OBMS as part of Disabilities Awareness Month lead the way at a really awesome wheelchair basketball event that I will let Ms. Mallon and other board members speak to because we were really very, very proud of her in that event. Congratulations and thank you to the high school PTSA on their big craft fair. They had over 60 vendors this past weekend, and they have another big event coming up on April 11th. Also at the high school with their pound auction. RMS will hold, and OBMS will hold pop concerts tomorrow and Thursday. So we're very excited to hear some more outstanding music from our talented student musicians. And ESL night will be held on Thursday prior to one of the pop concerts at RMS. Coming up, we have lots of great stuff coming up in the schools. At the high school, there's career night on April 2nd. RMS has their Tri-M Talent Show on April 3rd. Back at the high school, there's the Music Showcase of the Arts on April 4th. And then the following week, we have at the high school the Seal of Biliteracy ceremony and the Library Literacy celebration. A lot of great stuff coming up across the district. And certainly for those celebrating the end of Ramadan, I wish you a blessed Eid this Monday. As always, thank you to our PTA, SEPTA, ORBA, Athletic Boosters, Civic, and Rotary for all that you do for our students, staff, and community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Centimore. We have our committee reports, the technology and website, Mr. Grossa.
I have a bit of a lackluster update, but we went through, we worked in small groups, typically we do every time, but to go through the current sitemap for each of the school's websites and just like how many subpages there are on each one and how there's like a subpage inside of a subpage and then you get there and it doesn't load. So the goal overall is going to be to condense that down, and we, as our groups kind of went through, we picked different schools and we're like, we could get rid of this. We got information about like some of the most viewed pages within our websites by people and like some that have been viewed 2 times in the past year total. So where can we move that information so there's not so much going on when we redesign the website? So it's definitely a work in progress, and the goal also is we're definitely trying to make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing when you get to it, like a little less boring looking and a little more clear to get to where you want to go. So stay tuned. We're going to get there.
Thank you. Wellness and nutrition, Ms. Napolitano-Ferner.
So I showed up at the end of I walked into Mr. Hauser in the parking lot, so I got all the information. It was right after we had our meeting at the high school, you and I. So what ended up happening is I had gone to Cherokee Street School for their guest chef. I went to Slocum for their guest chef. We went to the high school for their guest chef. And I'm trying to think which, I went to one of the, was it OB? We went to one of the middle schools. And we checked out what they were doing, and I couldn't believe how much the kids enjoyed it. I would be very honest with you. I was expecting to walk into a chef behind the counter and making waffles or doing something like that, because that's what was done last year. That was what I was expecting. And what I walked into was a guest chef who was very good with the kids. He was excellent. And he was giving out little cups of, I can't say it, go ahead and say it for me.
It was edamame
That's
and
it.
kiwi.
I keep calling it beans, little beans in a cup. And he was also kiwi, which I have to be honest with you. I know you will, I had Mr. Hauser laughing in the parking lot at RMS because I kept saying to him, I couldn't believe all the kids lining up and wanted to try this while I'm sitting there going, I can't believe this is all we're giving them. I was like, but they loved it. So, I mean, in that regard, it was great to see kids picking things that were so nutritious and there are a lot of them trying it. And even so many kids telling me that they already had eaten it, especially at Cherokee. They kept saying, oh, we ate this. We've eaten this before. Slocum, they were running up to the guy and he was sitting with them at their tables. And at one point, at the elementary schools, he said to them, what do these do? Tell her, what do these do? And all the kids start yelling, they make us strong. And it was really cute. I mean, I would have preferred to see them behind the counter making waffles and something fun like that. But in regards, the kids really did enjoy this and absolutely loved it. So I will say kudos to the Wellness and Nutrition committee that I'm on with. They did an outstanding job with working this out. And really great job by Airmark by bringing this guest chef in who was really outstanding with the kids. You know, I'm hoping for a little bit more fun, making some like pasta stations again or something like that in the future. But it was very cute.
So I know you have guest chef on here for board discussions, but can we just roll into it now? Because I just wanted to comment myself. When I was at the high school and I went to the guest chef, I thought it was great that the chef was interactive with the students and he was presenting all the nutritional background associated with the edamame and the kiwi and how they're superfoods and all the proteins associated with it. And the kids were attentive. They were listening. And for those that hadn't tried it, they got to try it. But as Jackie said, I did expect a little more. Like I did perhaps, like in my mind, I thought that he would be behind the counter cooking something or showing them how to cook something. I thought the experience would have been a little grander for the students, but I did appreciate that he was like almost like a teaching moment for them with the background on the food that he was serving them. But I did think it was going to be a little bit more cooking involved.
You can take off guest chef for board discussions, but I just want to roll into this. I wanted to say I went to the high school when we were in the high school, and when I went there, I have to give such accolades to the high school. You know, all of our staff are doing an incredible job, especially our lunch staff where we are so understaffed at times. I went to Cherokee and I was amazed that they're making little strawberry banana smoothies. I couldn't believe it. And they gave me one to try. That was cool. And I did say how amazing it was for the kids because I couldn't believe how many kids actually drink smoothies. I don't know many, I don't remember ever having that kind of elementary, like, you know, option. That's amazing. A lot of kids were getting it. So, and I tried it. It was excellent. They did an amazing job. That was at Cherokee. Then when I went to the high school, kudos, honestly, to the new supervisor there. She's doing an outstanding job. She took me around at the high school. She was showing me that they were doing all sorts of, what was it, the quesadillas? They had a whole quesadilla area. They had pretzels. They had so many stations opened, and they said the one station that wasn't open, they were looking to open soon, is going to be the pizza station. Really, the kitchen looked like a different place. The morale was up. It was amazing. So I just want to say, very great job. Amazing to see that at the high school level, especially.
Thank you. Board of Ed topics. We'll start with Mr. Jim Bannon. So as Dr. Senamore said yesterday, there was an awards lunch dinner for him yesterday at Villa Lombardi's, provided by Scope. It was amazing. There were 840 people there. There were over 200 people being honored. Jim is just such an amazing individual, and for him to receive this honor, and it was an honor for me to be there with him celebrating. I don't know if anybody else
I
wants.
want to speak. I just want to grab my little book here. I've been honored to be able to work with Jimmy for the last 6 years. He's the kind of person that comes into CO and with his smile alone, I don't know that this man has ever had conflict with anyone. He is one of the nicest people you will ever meet. I mean, I've told him even at my worst, when I'm in a bad mood, if I run into him, I can't help but smile. I told his wife that yesterday. I wish him all the very best. And his retirement, I wish he wasn't retiring. He is one of the best of the best. I'm just going to read what was written because I think he deserves this after 25 years here, and everyone who knows him at CO knows what incredibly large shoes he's going to have to fill. Jim is a valued member of the custodial staff at Connectquot's administrative offices. Whether you are a coworker or visitor, if you have ever had the pleasure of being in Jim's company, consider yourself lucky. For the past 25 years, Jim has been a hardworking, knowledgeable, and reliable staff member that makes everyone around him feel comfortable and valued. Jim is thoughtful, caring, and truly a good person who knows everyone's name and never hesitates to stop and say hello. His kindness and desire to help anyone, anytime, is a characteristic that not many people possess. No one knows the ins and outs of the administrative offices like Jimmy does. He has even made friends with the resident ghost that supposedly haunts the building. His historical knowledge of those he has worked with over the years is impressive. He remembers names, faces, and even has stories about past board members, superintendents, clerical staff, fellow custodians, transportation employees that he has interacted with over the past 25 years. We sadly have to say goodbye to Jim as he is retiring in June, but the impression he has made on the hearts of those he has worked with will never fade. He is truly one of the greatest colleagues, co-workers anyone could ask for, and will leave an indelible mark on those who were lucky enough to work alongside him. All the best, Jimmy.
Thank you. I have roll call on the Board of Ed topics. So I actually had a community member come up to me at the last board meeting and make a suggestion that I want to present to the board. So his suggestion was that during roll call, in addition to our name, our titles be presented so that people that may not know what position we're holding on this dais, maybe people at home can read our nameplates. So it was just a suggestion that while we do the roll call, we also add the position, like Melissa Torregrossa, Board of Ed Trustee. I don't know how the board feels about that, but I told them I would bring it up for sure.
I'm fine with that. Doesn't matter to me either way.
So can we add that moving forward, our positions to our roll call? Thank you. Special education numbers, Ms. Napolitano-Furno.
So I have been going over special education for the last few years, explaining how in this district we used to have 3 to 4 top administrators, and now we are down to 1 position. The director of special ed, there used to be an assistant director, and then the assistant sup. We also had at one point 2 assistant directors, a director, and an assistant sup. I have seen after, that's why I wanted to pull the numbers. What is this board's thinking about giving some help to the special education department, a position rather? I think we are really at a crossroads here. So people have said to me there are 981 special education students in district programs. 99, additionally, 99 special education students in out-of-district programs. 431 students with a 504 document. 157 preschool students receiving special education services. Total number of students that they gave me for the special education numbers was 1668. Then we have staff members, 105 special education. What is it? It's not students. Is that teachers you put there? They had written students.
It says special ed students.
Yeah, it should be teachers though. Correct? I'm assuming it's teachers. Okay. Then it's 19 psychologists, 17 speech therapists, 4 behavioral consultants, 4 coordinators, 3 CSE chair people, with a total of 152 staff. My whole issue is that most people only look at special ed and look at those who are receiving special education services. Most people don't look at those students who are on the cusp, who have 504 accommodations, who maybe when they took their testing, they couldn't get the special education services because their educational value of how they did on the tests, it didn't give them the ability to move towards there. We have those kids who have 504s and are in the special education department, and then we have those who have the 504 accommodations only, but do not fall under special ed. All of these numbers, and we only have the one director. We don't have a one director position. We don't have an assistant director. We don't have even if we've had someone on special assignment. I'm just saying I think this board needs to seriously discuss giving some help to that department, whether it be having an executive director position and then having an assistant director or something along those lines. But we definitely need something because while we are having a decline in enrollment, we're having an increase in special education services. I mean, drastically over the last 5 years. So I'm just trying to find out what are our options to help in that department.
I feel the same way that you do. Before even seeing these numbers written out in front of us, that to have one person over all of this, it's a lot. There's a lot of students there and even a lot of staff to manage. So I'm with you in advocating for that. I think it's important to do so. These students deserve that. They deserve to have that help. The staff deserves to have that extra help, and so does the director. So I'm with you in advocating for that. I'd like to also see what we can do about this.
Yeah, I'd be interested just to also take a look into some of what we do have, and is it the best use of the money? Like, I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I just feel like there's the academy at the high school, right? And like, I hear mixed feedback about the academy and whether it's the best utilization of that. Like, can we maybe if it's needed elsewhere and that's not the best option. I kind of just want to see a little bit more about like what we have and like what we're seeing actually does help, because it's good to say we have the programs, but like what good are they if they're not getting benefit out of it because it's overwhelmed, the ratios of everything. I mean, I don't think anyone, not going to speak for everyone. Of course, we want the right amount of support in those rooms.
So I definitely am all for giving special education the aid that they need and the help that they need. I'd be interested in seeing if we're utilizing our teachers and our psychologists and our therapists to their best ability, and do they need more help? Or is it that we need to add an assistant director? Those are all good conversations to have. So I would be interested to see if our staff is currently being utilized to their maximum. Do they need help? Just seeing the whole realm of the special ed department.
I just think that we also need to look back on the past. And while I don't think we need 3 or 4 people, because I don't believe in top heavy admin, I also believe you have to have the right amount of admin. Years ago, when the assistant soup position was accessed, there was an assistant director and director in place, those positions. So when the assistant director retired, resigned, left, they never refilled it. and the position itself got abolished through the budget process, which it shouldn't have. Because the reality is, like I said, as we're seeing a decline in enrollment, we're seeing an increase in special ed services. And I have to be honest with you, something that I just learned, which I'm always very much, you know how I like to hone in on special ed. The 504, I never knew how many kids have 504 accommodations. I learned this with my own child. People have 504 accommodations. They could have this many. It could be a long list. And yet they do not fall under special education as a special education student with a 504. They're a 504 accommodations. And it's different. And I didn't know that. I thought if a child had a 504, they fell under special ed because there's the committee meetings, there's this, but it's different. And I think those are the kids that people don't realize. A lot of those kids could fall through the cracks without the extra help. And I never like to even use that terminology, falling through cracks, but I have seen it happening over the last few years, and not at the fault of the director, who I believe the director position is, we're asking too much from one person, of any person, across district. I mean, 168 students. How many students do we have in our high school? How many students are in our high school building? About 1,700. So 1,700 students, and we have how much administration? We have 4 APs, 1 principal, and a lot of directors, right? I mean, we have directors of science, the director of social studies and business, the director of math. I just feel like we give more help in that aspect, which is absolutely fine, but what about this? So I just want to make sure that our special ed department is getting the help they need. And I'm advocating to have an executive director position, to elevate a position and make a assistant director position. Now I understand this is during the budget process and could change the budget process. But if we're taking attrition into respect and we're looking at line by line, we should be able to figure out where can we get rid of wasteful spending and make sure that our special education students are getting what they need and our special education department feels supported.
I'd be interested to see, because I know you brought up that years ago we had those other positions. And while I understand programs change and everything, but I'd actually be interested to see these numbers from years ago, to see how much staff, how many students had the 504s, how many were special education students, to see these statistics with that staff, to compare, because if it was less students back then with all those extra upper positions, how is it that now we have more students and less people in those positions? So I'd be interested in adding that to the research into this project.
I would like to see those numbers also.
All right, so we will get the board information on the academy, some historical data going back a few years, and comparison. You know, the last couple of years, we've maximized the attrition, and one of the things that I want to avoid is the ebb and flow of adding staff, removing staff. So it's not about 1 year figure out $170,000 in the budget. It's about, if we add a position, can we sustain a position? Because the last thing I want to do is add a position, and then next year the governor says, oh, zero aid, and it's a 1% tax cap, which is great for the community, but it's not great for revenue. And so this is the challenge. I could appreciate that, the assistance for, the current director. And we'll certainly look at, how well we're utilizing all of our staff. But I need to be able to look at this in a multi-year facet and not just figure it out for 1 year and then, okay, next budget season, you know what, we added this position, but we don't have the luxury this year, so we're going to have to access it. And that's the challenge.
I agree. I wouldn't want like the ebb and flow. Maybe something we could also look at is we have a lot. I understand there's a cost associated, but I would rather make sure that all the kids are in the correct program that's going to help them appropriately. Maybe criteria-wise, who's going to the BOCES out-of-district services might, maybe instead of adding staff, it might be that we can't, not that we can't, they might be better served in a setting like that. And instead of needing to add staff, and maybe it's making sure they're my main concern is making sure they're getting the most they can out of everything, right? So like if everyone's feeling overwhelmed or like not supported enough, that's just going to have that trickle down effect onto the kids, which is what we're trying to avoid.
I don't really love the idea of moving kids out of district. For years, I've been trying to move more kids into district and move the programs here. So the issue that a lot of people don't realize is when we send kids out for services, it costs us a lot more money when we send it out. So while it sounds great, it's absolutely at the end of the day going to cost more to send a student out. They also have to have transportation. A lot of parents would prefer them stay here with their services here. So I feel totally different in that regard. I don't want kids to go to BOCES for services when I know that we end up spending more doing that and they don't get as good a services as we're doing here at ConnectQuad in regards to these are our students. That's why we brought the academy and a lot of other ideas here because we didn't want to keep sending the students out because it was costing a lot more.
We can
I could be totally off the mark here. I'm sorry. But I don't think Melissa's saying to bring them out of district. I think she's saying, are they appropriately placed within our district? Are they getting the services that we can provide for them? Or would they better be suited at another place? We're not looking to get rid of students. We just want to make sure everybody is properly placed and getting the support that they need for them to succeed.
Correct. Thank you. I meant more like if we have one director who's like this is how things like accidentally get overlooked. I don't think anyone would ever intentionally overlook something. I meant more like taking a look big picture wise, making sure everybody's getting what they need right now and then going from there and looking at what we need to add, take away, whatever it is.
I would say that our special education director is an incredible find and an incredible worker. And I would never want in a million years to question the ability of our special education department because I think they're doing an incredible job. I think we as a board are failing them by not giving them the appropriate assistance and support that they deserve. That's my opinion. Again, years ago when I sat here, it was less students in special education with more staff to help. So I'm not going to question the ability of the people there because I know I'm watching a director do the job of 3 different people. And I got to tell you, the only people that are failing are us for not giving her assistance till now. We've had talks about this for the last 3 years that we were going to do a assistant director. Every budget season, I feel like it's been, maybe we'll do one that's half PPS, half, remember that? That was like 2 years ago. Half PPS, half assistant director of special ed. Special education right now is huge. The amount of students that are in special education, 1668, and that doesn't even include, like I said, you have other students who have accommodations that aren't always on this list. You have the students that just have some services that are not considered special education. I just feel like we're setting up our unit for failure, and then we get upset when there are lawsuits or there are problems with the placements and stuff. I think that that's what needs to be looked at. We should have already given this unit the support that they need. And I don't think that I disagree that I think that we need to look at where they're placing students. I don't think that that's what the issue is. I think the biggest issue in special education right now is the fact that we're expecting one person to do the job of 3. Yet last year we all advocated to put back an AP at the high school, which I agreed. I was one of the people who agreed to that and wanted that. But I also know that while doing that, I wouldn't leave special ed without help. It's not fair. It really is not equitable across the district in regards to you have a high school with this many staff and you have special ed with just one person, and we expect one person to be Wonder Woman, and you know what? She is, but she needs help. That's my opinion.
And I understand the budgetary concerns with the ebb and flow. You don't want to, we don't want to put the money somewhere and then say next year we don't get the aid to cover it. However, when I look at something like this, I don't know that there's necessarily going to be that ebb and flow in the students. So this is a place that I kind of feel like we make it work because these students need it. They come first, right? So they need the services. The special education director, who's doing multiple jobs of many people, they need that help. That is not necessarily going to ebb and flow. So this is someplace that I would really want to see us make it a part of our budget rather than if we have the money now, but next year we might have to get rid of them. We have to try to find a way to make this work because these students need it. That's where it's worth it to me to put that money.
So I just want to just say one piece about placement. It's not one person's decision. There's a committee on special education called CSC. It's a committee of professionals. It has the parent. Depending on the age, you could have the student themselves be a self-advocate. So there is a process and there is a committee. It's not just one person. So just when we talk about placement, I don't want anybody to think that there's one person that is making those decisions.
And that's part of my point is that I've sat in CSE meetings as a parent. I've sat in CSE meetings as an advocate. I've sat in CSE meetings, and what I've seen is everybody's trying to do what's best for the student. So I have no question about the placement. My strong advocacy is for giving help to a position that should have already had help. The last 3 years, when people say to me, oh, special ed, this happened or that happened, I say to them, blame us, blame the board, because we should have already advocated. And again, this is not the first year. I've been saying this for the last few years that I wanted this position put in because the assistant director position should have never been gone. Somebody resigns doesn't mean that just through the budget process we allow the position to go away. And now you have one person doing the job of one position, I should say, is doing the job of 3 positions. That's a lot. When other people do that, we give stipends, we give this, we give that. What are we doing? We're expecting too much from people and we're not giving back what we should be. We should be supporting this. And again, if the number of students keeps increasing, the number of CSE meetings, here's all the committee meetings, everybody, right here. It's a lot. It's a lot. They do a lot of work and they do a good job, but they need help.
Before we go quick, I just want to, I am not saying that they don't do a good job. What I'm trying to say is that like I could be the best in the world at my job, but if I am feeling exhausted and drained, I am not going to be able to actually do my best at it, right? Like I might be incredible, but like if I feel like I'm being pulled too many places, I'm going to not perform up to my best potential. That's all I meant. I know that everyone in our special education department works extremely, that's the reason we're having this conversation, because they're working extremely hard. So just wanted to say, I don't think anybody is like not doing their job or not capable of it. I'm saying that nobody as a human nature performs at their best when they feel overextended. Just a human behavior.
Agreed, Melissa. Education skills, Miss Napolitano for no.
So I've done a couple of trainings. We actually went to the law conference this week. Myself, Jacqueline DiRenzo, Melissa Torregrossa, and April Iannatelli with Dr. Sentimore. And it was a good experience. This one was geared more towards attorneys and school law, but I've gone to a bunch, and this one was the most with a lot of law involvement with more legal, lawful presentations that had more to do with dealing with the attorneys than so much the school. But again, we still learned a lot on open meetings law, on title, on a bunch of different things. It was a good experience, but I did go to this, I did a bunch of Zooms, and one of the ones I did that I found was exceptional, and I wanted to bring it to all you guys' attention, was demonstrating understanding through writing, meeting the expectations of college and today's workforce. So what it is it explores the power of writing in both surface level and deep learning, highlighting when and how to integrate writing activities effectively during class time. With actionable strategies and practical examples, you learn how to empower the educators and students to engage the students in reflective and active learning through writing in a way that will ensure college and workforce readiness. It was a 30-minute discussions. A seasoned K-12 educator and leader ran the insightful discussion with all of us. It was about strong writing skills that are critical for success in school and beyond. From the workplace to college classrooms, the ability to express one's thoughts and ideas in a coherent fashion is expected. Writing is the output of understanding. Given time and curriculum constraints through through all of these things, how can district leaders help educators carve out space for daily writing to build student fluency and confidence so future graduates can successfully pursue a post-secondary degree and career? It really was exceptional. A good one to bring forward. I do some that are extremely dry. I did a couple this week that one was really bad off. But this one was exceptional, had me very, like I was taking notes, it was exceptional.
Do you mind sharing the presenter's name?
Absolutely.
That would be great.
I can actually send you an email with the whole thing in it.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Idle Hour Makerspace, Miss Napolitano for now.
So shout out to Idle Hour. I'm also going to put the circus just because it's together. Sure. I'm going to say, I visited Idle Hour for their circus. Their circus was incredible. Thank you so much, to all of Idle Hour, the staff, the students, the parents, for inviting us. I had a blast. Me and Dr. Sensimore went. It was an incredible performance by all of the students. I personally missed it when my child, during COVID, my son was a 5th grader, so I got to see it when my daughter was little, but she's graduating this year. So you can only imagine when I got to see all these little kids having a great time. It was incredible. It makes you wish your student was in 5th grade again. But again, it was a beautiful presentation. Thank you so much for the invitation. I know that a lot of Idle Hour, they invited us, which was so nice. The other was the Idle Hour Makerspace. What an incredible way to get students involved in science. The principal came up with the challenge, and her student government came up with a couple of ideas of sliming the principal, of pie in the face, of doing duct taping, and they ended up getting 70. She asked for 65 kids to participate, and I went last year. It was nowhere near 65. This year, she said it was over 70 kids that 70 kids that did that. And they had such incredible projects. One kid had a kicking the ball with a fake leg. Another kid it was like cookies and milk and was showing us how they work. With the kid next to them had a Lego presentation. There was just so many incredible things. And the fact that the kids wanted to show us everything that they had done and how excited they were for it. It was awesome to see, because you don't always see that in such a young age with science. So to get them involved, I have to say that I was so impressed by how it was handled. Thank you to the teachers. Thank you again to Miss Rubin. And thank you to Miss Rubin for being a star and allowing the kids some fun. Once these kids get to post-secondary school, they don't really get to have the fun like that. And some people were writing things and questioning this and that. And I have to tell you, I don't know whatever happened to people allowing kids to have fun. But in case anyone wants to know, I looked it up. There is a physics lab about duct taping people to walls and like how they stay up. I actually looked at it. It was a 2013 lab presentation by one of the colleges for physics, and it was incredible. So when people said to me, "Oh, I wonder, Jackie, this isn't educational." No, it is. It was a physics education for the students on how duct tape holds that kind of weight. And you want to know something? I give that principal a round of applause for allowing the kids to have fun. We need more fun in this district. We need these young people to be enthusiastic and to get them motivated to be involved in education. To see so many kids volunteer to do a science project just so they could have some fun with their principal and they could have this challenge, kudos to her. Bravo.
So I also went to the Makerspace showcase. As someone in science, I love this. My kids went to Sycamore, and we did have an optional science fair, which was not optional for my own children. So I love that Ms. Rubin invites us in to see the projects. The ingenuity of the kids is amazing. The ideas and the concepts that they come up with is just, it blows me away every time, because at the end of the day, they're K through 5, right? So the ideas that they come up with, amazing. It was great to see. I love that Ms. Rubin made it fun for them, and she duct taped herself to the wall. I wish I was there to help duct. No, I'm just kidding. But she's great, and it was a great showcase. RMS mural, Miss Napolitano Fergo.
So I got to sneak a peek at the RMS mural, and I had to add it because what an incredible sight. So beautiful. So I don't know if they can hone in on the picture. Oh, you're holding the picture up? So this is such, it was incredible. I went to the RMS PTA meeting, and I went out into the cafeteria because I had to see it. They actually were talking about it. So I believe one of the parents, or they got either it is a parent or it's either a parent that did it. It's a parent, right? Yeah, that did it. And what an incredible job he did. I have to say, this is beautiful. It says dream big, never give up, growth, be kind, be smart. I mean, this is just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Beautiful work. And really great job, RMS. I absolutely loved it.
We're passing around the picture, but if anybody at home, we'll try to put it on our website for everyone to see. High school library, Miss Napolitano Fergo.
So I brought up this about, I guess it was a couple months ago. I spoke to administration, and then I was walking around in the high school myself for one of the classes or something we were doing there, and I said I noticed that the library was closed again. So I know, Mr. Allen, you and I have spoken about the library over the past. I wasn't sure if we paid 1.3 million or 1.4 million for that bond when we did the high school library. Okay, so we spent 1.3 million on a library that's closed a lot. And parents complained to me months ago, and I kind of was like, okay, I brought it to administration. Then I start hearing that, you know, kids weren't allowed in the library if they're at study hall, which I can't understand unless then you had to get a pass. And then I heard that it's not about the pass. If you're in library, if you're in lunch, you're in study hall. I have to ask, why are we not allowing students in the library, and why are we not motivating them or encouraging them to utilize this space? So I was told, oh, there's a lot of kids in the library. Anytime I've been in the library and anytime I've spoken to kids, there have not been more than 30 kids in a library that on the right side of the wall says 174 occupancy. So obviously there's a problem if we're shutting the doors of the library. Then I heard that the library's closed after school. So I was at the school for something, I don't remember what it was, and I went up to the library and it was closed. And I said, I don't understand. And they said, oh, we don't have staffing. So I'm trying to understand what we're doing here, because I believe we have 4 to 5 people that work in the library. Why are we not looking for an aide or somebody to stay for after school for a half hour? Because I don't understand, before sports start, we're asking for trouble if we just have all of our sports kids, all of these excess kids, just roaming around the building or roaming around the place, and then say to ourselves, why do kids get into trouble? You know, I say to people, the library should be open. The library should be a place. We spent $1.3 million for a space for students. I do not understand why from 2:05 till at least 2:45 that is not available for students who stay after for things. I want to help, you know, push students to go to the library, use the library.
So I will tell you that the woman who was in there and who was an aide, she had to take a leave of absence to do her student teaching, and we've posted for that position and we've hired for that position. And on the next board agenda, she will be up on the agenda for approval, and she will be working from 2:05 to 2:50.
That's perfect.
So that's what we're looking to do.
Could I ask you why we didn't hear about this sooner? Because this is going on for months that I've been saying the library's closed. And I even saw students, which I thought was sad. I saw students in the hallway on the second floor tutoring. I saw a senior tutoring a younger child, and then they got told they can't even, and I understand that. They can't be on the second floor after 2:05. They have to go downstairs and tutor somewhere else. But like, this is part of the problem. We say we want to allow our students to tutor. We say we want to have the older kids tutor the younger kids for free, and they do this for community service, but we're not giving them a place to do this. So I'm happy to hear this, but I wish it would have been done sooner. Like I said, I've just been asking for this for a while, and I'm happy to hear it is happening.
I believe the woman who went out has been out since late January, and we've had to post. We had to follow the, contractual obligations of the district. So we've posted. We did have a break in there in February, so we lost some time there. And then there was some back and forth as to how we were going to staff it, whether it was going to be with an aide or if we were going to shift somebody's schedule or something along those lines. But we've finally gotten to a point where we've been able to find the right person, and that person's going to take over.
Can we also find out why the library is closed throughout the day so often? Again, $1.3 million was utilized for this library, and it should be used by the students.
So I'm not sure about the frequency of a full library closure, right? So I think around the dais, we've all been in that space where there are partial closures, right? A full closure would happen if there was something large scale going on. Sometimes that library is closed during testing season, for instance, for makeups. And even then, I think that the staff attempts to do the best they can to compartmentalize, because luckily that space does have some areas where things can occur in a quiet fashion and be uninterrupted from other occupants of the space. The library at the high school is managed by the staff, and the allocation of space is managed by the staff within the library. So I've seen all sorts of machinations of what that could look like, right? So I've observed lessons, instructional lessons in that instructional area, and the remainder of the library was open for students. In some instances, relative to study hall, it may be an effort to just control student movement throughout the building and not necessarily the library itself, as the endpoint for the student travel through the building. There may have been an effort to kind of limit that or control that in some way, shape, or form, and maybe that's what is being referred to here. But I don't know off the top of my head. I would have to be able to go back and if we even keep a log of how many times the library is actually fully closed down for student traffic. If there's a concern, though, and I should add this, if there's a concern and a student has a need, they can certainly take that concern or need to an administrator, to a teacher, to our library media specialist or any staff member. And I'm sure that people would be willing to help out and provide assistance in any way, shape, or form. I know so many students use that space to print, right?
I was just going to bring that up. So I have to say, I actually reached out to Marisol. I reached out to her this week in regards to, I personally take my children to the regular public library. So when parents reached out to me this week and said to me that their students couldn't, or was it maybe last week? I called you, though.
It was right before the scholarship essays were
so
due.
I called Marisol and I said, you might know better, ask your child, because mine doesn't know the answer. I said, if we know if they're allowed to print stuff in the library, because I was told by several parents that their kids could not print things in the library. And I said, even for scholarships? Then I did speak to guidance who said, no, if they speak to one of the librarians, they should be allowed to. And I said, what do we mean? We don't allow kids. See, I didn't know this. I thought, and I'm sorry that I didn't, I think it needs to be more like the library, like the public library, where they give you 10 prints a day. I know some colleges do 100 pages. They give you a card and you can scan it and you get 100 pages for the year. Like, we need to figure something out if we're not allowing students to print. Because, again, I don't understand the whole object of having a library and it's a taxpayer money and we're not allowing students to print their scholarship paperwork. That is crazy. I mean, I'm going to tell you the truth. I took my own child to the public library, and then I called Jackie D and said, I just spent $30 on prints at the public library. I said, when did it increase like this? And she was like, she's like, Jackie, you haven't done prints in a long time, huh? I said, yeah, because it's 10 prints a day at the public library, which is awesome. But like our students should be allowed, especially if they have study hall. The more I hear about study hall, the more I'm like, wow, what a waste if we don't allow those kids to use their study hall to go do scholarship paperwork. We don't allow them to use the study hall to do anything but sit in study hall. Oh no, we allow them to go to the library, but they need a pass. Okay, no problem. I believe in that. But what are we doing? Like then they go to study, then they go to the library and they're told, no, they can't be in the library. You have study hall. What? And that happens. So as a parent in this district, as a taxpayer, and as a board member, I am completely disgusted that we have a library, $1.3 million, and our students are not getting the full usage that they should.
So,
Sorry.
no, I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought. No, I'm
Printing.
no. So I understand. I just actually came to understand this. This was just told to me that the students are actually not allowed to use the library during study hall. Like it's a rule at the library for whatever reason. I don't understand why that's a rule, but okay, rules are rules. I get it. But what if your child doesn't have a lunch and study hall is their only free period? Can they go to the library? Can they get a pass from their study hall period and go to the library? I also understand that
Who made this rule?
I don't know who made the rule. I also understand that the printing is an issue. I mean, my own kid came to the public library here to print for her scholarships. She can drive, so she drove herself here to print. A lot of the kids don't have cars, can't drive, their parents are busy. There's a lot I don't understand. I understand the rules are rules, but
Well,
I just-
I have a great one. Let's find out who made the rule for nobody can use the library at study hall, because I didn't hear that. I heard that they had to get passes. But because if that's the case, we have a big problem. And then we need to set a policy about libraries, because there is an issue when you spend over $1 million on a library, which by the way went through on a capital project bonds, and now you're telling taxpayers, hey, we used that bond and we made all these libraries, but your kids should go to the public library because we're not allowing your children to go. Why are we not encouraging using our library?
We'll follow up.
Yeah, can we just gather can we fact check it all and find out what is you know what I mean? And then go from there, because I can just see the hysteria building. But yeah,
I know for a fact.
I know that I always thought it was that with a pass that if you had a study hall, you could go to the
I know
library.
for a fact, I spoke to an admin last week, just so you know. I spoke to admin last week in regards as a parent, when I reached out to them and said, I need to understand this, kids who are in study hall, because my own children have study hall, and I asked, so my one child who has study hall, the same period as my one child who has lunch, the one who has lunch is allowed to go to the library, the one who has study hall is not allowed to go to the library. And I said, well, my children want to go to the library together, so what do I have to do now? Do I have to call up guidance and change the study hall to a lunch? And I mean, to be perfectly honest, as a parent in this district, I was totally flabbergasted by what was being told. They said, no, they have to get a pass. That's what I was told. They have to get a pass, and they can get a pass from their admin. And I did say this, why are we not advertising that? Like, that should be on the Connecticut High School page or on the Connecticut page. If your 9th grader, 10th grader, 11th grader, or 12th grader wants to go to the library during study hall, they should be allowed. They have to go to their admin, the grade level admin, and get a pass. Now, I don't know if that's because it's allowed, but let's not encourage it. No, I'm encouraging it. I have 2 children who at the same time, one is in the library, one is at lunch, and one is at study hall. They both should be allowed to go at the same time. They are. But when I heard that the library is always closed from other people's children and parents who reached out to me now going back like 4 or 5 months, it's like the library has become like a bathroom. I heard like there's also that issue we've always had. The bathrooms are always closed. The bathrooms are always closed. Okay, well, now the library? I mean, we have to do better at that. We really do have to do better.
I'll follow up and get the information. And I just want to be sure about the printing piece too. The study hall pass piece, I do understand that is the practice, right? To have a pass to enter during study hall. But printing, I've witnessed students asking to print in the library for various reasons. This is the first I'm hearing that there was a turn away for a scholarship. And so I'll look into that. I don't know what this particular case.
I'm not saying my
cases are
child was
about.
turned away. I'm just saying
Yeah,
I had heard that there were issues with printing.
I heard from several students who told me they had to go to the public library. And I said to them, I didn't even, to be perfectly honest, I said, okay, well, I'm just going to go to the public library because it's easier for me.
Okay.
But for some parents, they work nights or they work later. Or to be perfectly honest, maybe they just don't have the extra $30 to waste on printing at the public library when they pay taxes. And we should be able to do something for these kids at our school library. We gotta, like, I believe in being fiscally responsible, but I also believe in we're supposed to be giving back to these kids. When we made this library, what exactly are we doing with it? I mean, I really want to know how many kids are in the library each day. I want to know how many times is it closed each day. I would love to do like a study going forward to see how much, how much usage is the library getting. Are we allowing kids to print? If so, how many prints are going out each day? These are things we should have some ability. If we're saying we have, and I was told there's 4 or 5 staff members in the library. I don't know if that's true. That's what I was asking if we could have the next board meeting. How many staff members and what does it cost to run that library? Again, because for a library that might be closed often, I'd like to know what are we spending on the library, staffing wise.
We'll get the information for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Wheelchair basketball. I have myself and Miss DiLorenzo. I'm sure more want to speak to it, but at OBMS we have a student that is wheelchair bound, and she plays basketball for a travel team. So she herself brought this initiative to Connect What at OBMS. She wanted her peers to know what it's like to play basketball in a wheelchair. So she brought in some of the handicapped wheelchairs for sports because they're different than the other wheelchairs that she uses on a daily. And the kids were amazing. They tried it out. Some were saying how difficult it was and how amazing it is that she can do this. And it was just such a great initiative for her to bring in and for us to be a part of and witness it. It was great.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It was incredible, and this young girl who brought this in is such an incredible example of just becoming something. Using what happened for other people and to move past that. I mean, she told us about her story. She allowed students to ask her questions. She was such an example that for everybody, and it was incredible. So much to be proud of. And I don't know how she does it. My son is at OBMS, and he tried it, and it was impossible to play. He himself was amazed that she can do this, and it's really so special and incredible. And I actually would love to advocate. And I don't know if she wants to do this, but I would love to bring that to all the schools.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, even the high school. I know it was something where they borrowed they called them, I think, sport wheelchairs that they bring. They donated them. Her coach, I think, donated them for 2 days. Special wheelchairs where the wheels are angled a certain way, because a regular wheelchair you would topple over. You can't go around that fast in them. So these were special wheelchairs that they brought in, and I don't know if this is something that they can bring to the other buildings, if she would be willing to do it. I mean, it's wonderful to see our own students put something out there and to be a part of this community and this district in that way, to bring their own experience to their peers. She's a young kid. There's so much to be proud of. So thank you to her family. Thank you to the school for allowing that and for inviting us to see it. It was a very, very special moment.
So I was fortunate enough to be there as well. She's an incredible young lady. I've known her for a few years. I've seen her and her family. She's, like I said, she does such an incredible job bringing things like this and making people feel included. She had stated that it was strength, determination, skills, and perseverance that it took to navigate the wheelchair, and that it was great for other students to get that, because most kids don't get a chance to experience what it feels like, and she wanted them to understand what it's like to move and to compete in one. And I think it would be great to introduce the integrating sports with the wheelchairs into the school's PE classes if possible. I think it's inclusive, especially if we have other students that are in wheelchairs in the future. But either way, I also think it helps students see what a child who is in a wheelchair, how hard it is and how much skill level it takes to be able to compete like that. Incredible. She has an incredibly positive personality and outlook on life. She is an incredible role model. And thank you for inviting us. Thank you for being there. And again, I wish her all the best as she competes.
Federal Education Department, Ms. DiLorenzo.
So recently, we've seen with our new administration under President Trump that he got rid of was in the process of, I'm not sure exactly where it is in the process, the Federal Department of Education, which brings more local control to us, which is what we are here for, to really figure out what we are doing with our community. So with that happening, I would like to know what we are doing, because now the way the funds are going to be allocated, not through there to the state, I want to see what we can do as a district to advocate for what is due to ConnectBot, what we should have for ConnectBot out of those funds, how we can go about doing that, brings more local control to us. So that was one thing I want to talk about, and then and then I have another thing I wanted to talk about after that.
So in terms of the executive order to disband the Federal Department of Education, what would have to happen next is an act of Congress. So that's, we have to wait and see. What we're hearing is that the title monies, the federal title monies that we rely so heavily on, and not just ConnectWatt, school districts across country, across the state, we're hearing that let's say that Congress does take action and there's not this Federal Department of Education, we're hearing that those title funds are going to live in another department. I don't know which one, okay?
Health and Human Services, and also there's a bunch of attorney generals that are suing the administration to stop the dismantling of it's going to be at a standstill probably for a while. But my understanding, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, we already control the majority of our, like, the states already are the majority of the funding, and we don't get that much federal in comparison to what we already get state.
So, in terms of the future, if we had crystal balls, if there was any additional monies that were going to come to the state and be controlled through the state, it would be just like what we're doing now with the foundation aid. How, my 2 years here, you've heard the amount of advocacy. Thank you to this board for your advocacy. Thank you to our local state senator, our local state assembly people for their advocacy. And I do feel that last year, a 0% increase in foundation aid. This year, the executive proposal being a starting point of 2, and a push from both houses in the state, the Assembly and the Senate, to push for at least another close to 1% increase. I do believe that these advocacy efforts in school districts like ConnectWatt have made a difference. So certainly, if there's any kind of future shift of federal money that goes to the state, we are already in the process of really having a very strong advocacy effort, and it's a partnership. It's the board, it's the superintendent, it's all our various associations because they have advocacy as well, and it's these great partnerships that we have with our local elected officials and even other organizations. One of the things that I've been talking about is the concern about the existing mandate to shift to electric buses. We talked about how we're all about the environment and going green, and we're apolitical, but we talked about how unrealistic the mandate timeline is, and so that's something that we're pushing for. I just met, I think it was last week, with a room full of firefighters and the Islip area fire chiefs, to say, hey, listen, I think this is an area that crosses all fields. Certainly from their perspective, if there's a fire with an electric bus, how do you put it out? It's very, very challenging, whether it's an electric car, electric bus. And so, we have a joint concern, and so you create partnerships in that advocacy. I feel like we're in a very good place with advocacy, and so if any money is going to get shifted, I think we have a good foundation to build upon.
Thank you.
One other thing quick. I just wanted all of us to like keep an eye because some of these cuts from what I read, it depends on like where and what you're reading too. So it's very hard to discern what is what at this point. But things like cuts to like the USDA were going to impact our ability to get like locally sourced food and stuff like that in the districts, like the farm fresh foods. And like I feel like those are things. It's not just the Department of Ed to look at right now. It's just the obvious one, I feel like, we're a school board, but like there's a lot of cuts happening other departments that are going to impact us that I want to make sure we're prepared for, if anything, because that could change the flow of like food and things and price that we're getting.
I also think it's wonderful to cut out the middleman. I mean, I think people are reading into what's being done. The states pretty much are our local control. I think that we've seen too much government control, and now we're seeing people say, you know what, it's time to get rid of the middleman. I don't know that it's going to be a terrible thing, but as long as they stay consistent with making sure that special education services are fully funded, which what I read, which comes right from the executive order, is that they're keeping that, they're keeping the lunch money in place. There was 3 things they were keeping in place, if I'm not mistaken. Again, I would have to have it in front of me, but I know that it's definitely the special education funding, and it was definitely the money for food to source. So, I mean, again, people are making things more political than they need to be. Sometimes we just need to look at the way that we cut a budget as a board. I mean, I've been doing this for 6 years, and the way that we unfortunately have to go line by line. Not everybody does that, and I get it, because not everybody's been on the board long enough to have experience. But you really got to go line by line by line and see where the wasteful spending is. There were board members before me, and there'll be board members after me that go line by line, and they find the extra money. And you know what? Sometimes some of these things, they're not really, you know, even the decisions you guys made last year. Last year, I voted no to the budget, and you guys voted for an excess of how many people was it last year? 11? And then it ended up being 1.5 after all was said and done. But it was 11, am I correct? 11 positions. You guys voted yes to that. I didn't. And you know what? I said it for me. It could be that I had the experience to say, hey, if we're going to just put all these people back, give pink slips and then put them back, probably not the best idea. But you have to make hard decisions. So if at the federal government level, they're making hard decisions, but I'm just sitting back because I want to see how it's going to end, how it's going to impact our schools, how's it going to impact the local control. That's most important to me right now in regards to what we're dealing with, and it doesn't seem like it's going to influence too much in regards to hurting us. What it could do is, and you know, I wish Anthony was here, so I will be adding this for the next board discussion. Ari, if you could put that on, because I want to go back over the policies, because I want to know how many districts changed their policies back, because I was told that we're one of the only districts that added in words and added in language and added in verbiage that no other district did. What are we doing? Like, that's a problem when we're going against the tide, instead of we're doing things in a way that should be uniformed because of things like this. Now the federal government's going to come and say that verbiage is no good. They're going to strike that. And you know what? They could potentially be right. Had we just stayed within our realm of keeping it the way everybody else had it, the way NISBA left it, and the way it should have been, instead of adding verbiage, then we would have already been in compliance. But now we're going to be out of compliance when all's said and done. I voted no to that, just to remind you. So did you, Jackie.
Yes, and that was actually the other part that I wanted to talk about under the federal thing. And I have been, you know, kind of saying this for a while, but I really saw, it was kind of confirmation of my thoughts on this when we went to the training, the law conference on Friday. Oh, yes, on Friday when we went to the conference, they had different sessions of different things that you could attend, and of course, I went to the one on Title IX because I could never learn enough about it. And basically what they were saying is we had the executive order from President Trump And we are now at a point where, because the executive order, there are only 2 genders, and it is in conflict with state law. Like, there's such a conflict here that, in one sense, when we have our policy, which I really want to revisit, we have to revisit it, 0-100 on equal opportunity and non-discrimination. That policy, when we have that sentence, the district will adhere to all applicable federal and state laws and regulation in connection with the creation of a safe, supportive, and affirming school environment for all students. That's it. This board, not me, and I don't think you did that either, added including transgender and gender expansive students. That line in itself is against that federal, so we are now at a point, like you said, where we could be in non-compliance, and our best way to go, our best course, is to leave it as all students, because all students includes everybody else. And we really have to go back to that. So I am once again advocating, and I know we have to have a policy committee meeting, to remove that ending of the sentence, because that could now put us in conflict with what's coming down from the federal, until things are fully sorted out, because there are things happening all over the place. And I said it back then, that I didn't want to change it. We had a new administration coming. We also had the passing of Proposition 1, which was directly tied into it. Melissa, you were sitting there with me, so you heard all of this. When they talked about, they talked about Proposition 1.
I just heard it
where they
completely
said that
different
was,
than you, though, apparently.
But you were sitting right behind me, and you saw there was that slide all on Proposition 1, how that directly ties into this as well, the changing of Article 1, Section 11, I believe it is, of the New York State Constitution, where they changed the protected classes. That ties into this, and that goes against what's happening at the federal. So this is really something we need to look into, and I'm looking forward to revisiting this policy and hearing Anthony at the next meeting, because, asking him about this, what the recommendations, because if other districts are going with all students, I still don't understand why we went against that, especially when all covers everyone. And now with that extra sentence, we are really risking non-compliance on the federal level. So I'm hoping to, change that. I know we need a majority. So we'll see where we go, and I'm looking forward to the next policy committee meeting, which I hope is happening soon.
Yeah, I just heard it, I guess, different, and some of the notes that I took were a little different. It seemed even all those attorneys in the room, everybody's a bit confused on what direction to go right there. Like, right now, there is no level of, absolute certainty on either end. However, all I will say is we said all and we included a specific group of students, fine. I'm just not going to fight harder to keep a mascot than I am to make students feel included. I'm just not. I just refuse to sit here and throw it away as if they just don't matter and their feelings aren't valid about it. We had people reach out. That's obviously something we could talk about, but they literally said in that, which I forgot my book at home tonight, but they did not say that anything, if we don't move by this certain time, just because there was this executive order on a federal level, because Proposition 1 did pass, which codified a lot of things into our state constitution, which is why everyone is running around like chickens without heads right now, because it's really unclear for all of us, including the attorneys that were in that room. They were also kind of just there's a lot of parts, and I know that there was one part within that it said something about risking funding if you didn't comply with this mandate of 2 genders, which, fine, I hear you, but funding from who? Because we're dismantling the Department of Ed. So it's just no, but our state has codified these in. So that's what they were saying. There is a lot of back and forth with what is it, Title IX versus this versus that. There's a lot of different layers to it. It wasn't as simplified and boiled down as President Trump signs an executive order that there's 2 genders, change the policy. So it's not even, it's a lot right now, and it's new.
It is very new, and I can absolutely recognize that. I'm going to read from a slide that came directly from that presentation. And while you say, yes, we don't know what's happening federal, but the Department of Education, federal department, is, as you said, the middleman. The money is still there to go to districts. The federal money is still there. There's just a removal of the middleman. So that's still there. Now, the slide that I want to read, the title is Trump Administration Executive Orders. And then it states, in sum and substance, the Biden administration's Title IX regulations which had sought to codify LGBTQ plus student protections by prohibiting discrimination based on sexual orientation, gender identity, were struck down. Only 2 sexes are now recognized. These are subtitles. Bans transgender students from using bathrooms that align with their gender identity. And then schools barred from helping student social transitions. And then, bold, K-12 schools across the country are at risk of losing federal funding should they continue following Biden Title IX regulations. So, in sum and substance, we need to change that policy back to what it was.
You're not
and we
bringing
need
in
to
the
cover
context of the
all
20 slides on
students.
either end of that, though, because this is how misinformation
When
gets spread.
politics is spoken about,
Because this
you're
isn't the place,
overspeaking her.
this isn't the place for politics, and what I'm saying is that there's a lot of missing context on both ends of that. How many cases are listed in there that talk about districts fighting back against that and winning those cases depending on what it was? We don't know
President
anything.
Trump signed a
I make it about
executive
politics,
offer.
which is not, it's an executive order, but that does not
The
make
same way
it
when
law.
Biden signed an
That
executive
just
order,
doesn't make
we
it
have
law.
to follow it.
We're not
So
getting,
why are you against following the law?
ladies, we're not getting anywhere because we're all just speaking over each other. We're going to either speak one at a time or wait till the next meeting when we do have legal guidance
I
here.
think we should wait until we have legal guidance. That's just my opinion, because I think I listened to them room a lot of people saying that, like, a lot of attorneys saying there was not enough clarity for anybody to really move anywhere at this point, including them. So I'm fine with that.
And I was fine with speaking to attorneys who told me that only Connecticut took the liberty of changing the verbiage in this policy. And this is what I was told, so I'd like to hear it right from Anthony. I'd like you to look into this.
He will
How
be here
many
in about 5
districts-
minutes if you
Yes,
want.
how many districts have changed the verbiage? Because I was told that there's 2 ways that districts did it outside of Connecticut. And that was, one followed the NISMA regulation, which was just leaving the policy to the way it was, which read all students. All students encompasses all. Regardless, Melissa, what you think, all means all. As per the other districts, they changed it to read all students in that one sign. By us saying that it encompasses this many, this student, that student, this student, do you remember we received an email from a community resident that said, how come special education students weren't put there? Do you remember that we received another email from another community member that stated 18 other people that are in protected classes that we did not add? Why is it that you only remember the ones that you choose, selective memory? I remember all of the emails that we received. We did not receive just emails from the few people who said, please change it to include transgender or others. You just remember those people. I remember everyone. And that is that we had some community members who wanted it this way. We had some community members who wanted it this way. And to be perfectly honest, I said we should just follow the law. And the law and NISMA should have been the way that we followed it. By doing what you guys did, we could lose federal funding because you are not following the executive order, because politics are standing in your way instead of it being about following the law. So regardless who the president is, I follow the law. If it's President Biden, I followed the law under him. When it was President Trump, I followed the law under him. This is much like masking. I was not for masking. I told everyone, and everyone knew where I stood on that. And you want to know something? I still stand by that. But guess what? I still followed the mandate. I still followed the law because I had to. So we need to just follow the law and stop allowing it to make you emotionally charged, because you're getting all emotional,
charged?
jumping on Jackie, rolling your eyes.
7 minutes.
You're rolling your eyes. You're jumping on Jackie.
Here's what I will
Hold on.
say.
Can I
Here-
just go? 'Cause
here's
it's
what
been
I will
on,
say.
and I just want to reflect
Yeah,
that.
I will let
I
you-
don't like words being put in my mouth. I do remember all of the emails, and I believe I said, go ahead and add all 18 then. I don't care if they want to feel protected. I want them to feel protected in this school. Like, add all 20. And I'm not the one who said it was one person here advocating for everything. Now one email matters. We have to pick a side. I just said I would like to wait for legal to tell us which direction, because an executive order does not just equal law. If an executive order equaled law, the Department of Ed would be completely done right now. There's a process for these things. I said, let's wait for legal to get here. and tell us, but like, I don't appreciate you saying I only remember one, because I do recall saying, then add them all.
Okay,
That
hold
doesn't
on, hold on. I'm next. Can I just make a suggestion? We have legal on their way. He will be here in about 4 minutes per his text to me. So we're going to move on, and then when he gets here, we could circle back. How about that?
Fine. That works for me.
Thank
Fine.
you.
Digital wellness, Miss DiLorenzo.
I had done, which I think, Jackie, you were on it, and Marisol, you were on it too. The,
Oh, yeah, it was excellent.
the NISPA, it was a webinar, 60 Days of Disconnect, the impact of social media on our youth, was a webinar. Bob Vecchio organized this. He was great. It was fantastic. It's actually kind of scary to see what happens. I mean, we know what happens with social media, but really the impact it has on our minds. And one of the things that I thought was interesting that they brought up was, and we do this a lot in our schools, I see it in the elementary schools, we do digital literacy to teach the students how to use, not necessarily social media at the elementary level, but how to use the computers, how to use anything like that. But they brought up a concept of digital wellness, which I thought was really, really incredible, because I tell you, one of the things I learned about was something, I think they called it phantom vibrations, like a kid that is so in tune to their phone that even when their phone is not on them, they feel like it's vibrating. It's in their, and it's not. It's so connected to their mind. And I and this is probably something that would have to go through, Mrs. Pisani with wellness and everything. But I really think maybe we should consider not only bringing in something with digital literacy, but bringing in something about digital wellness, how to put it down, how to separate yourself from it, how to not focus on when you're on Instagram, how many likes did I get? Like, how to really separate that and bring back that human interaction. I don't know if that's something, I don't think we have anything like that now, but I think it's important to teach kids how to use it, but also teach them how to step away from it. I thought that was a great point that they brought up in that webinar.
I also thought it was excellent where they were saying social media and the teenage brain. I took screenshots of some of it where it said via National Library of Medicine, peer influence via Instagram, effects on the brain and behavior in adolescence and young adulthood, young minds and peer feedback, the vulnerability, peer feedback. It was so much they were giving us. It really is an excellent, training. And that's why I always say that these are good trainings, especially these ones that are like a lunchtime hour. You watch them for an hour, it keeps your attention, and it also teaches you a lot. A lot of times I like to do it on my phone because I take the screenshots of the actual slides, like this, the effect of social media on a scale, on the MRI scans of individuals with substance abuse addiction versus social media addiction, whether there's permanent damage, why are young people so vulnerable, critical periods in their life. I mean, it was really very, very good.
It was. I was actually, when they showed those MRI pictures of the brain, I was amazed to see that one of the parts that they said, when you see something, say, negative on social media or you had a bad comment, it actually triggers the same part of the brain that responds when you are in pain. Like, that's incredible to learn that and to think that young minds may be going through that. I do think it's really important for us to consider something along with digital wellness to help them to manage that. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
I liked also the dopamine where it says there's dopamine fasting and how much dopamine you receive is equal to your dopamine threshold when you're looking at a cell phone and when you're looking at social media, the anticipation often greater than the reward itself. I mean, it was very good. The reward, it set the dopamine reward loop, very, very good. It was very good and very educational. I'm glad we got to get on there.
Thank you.
If I may, I'm sorry,
Oh,
Mrs. Mallon.
please, Ms. Poppy.
So a few years ago, we did have a series of parent workshops that were co-hosted by our IT department and student services, right? And I think that we had some trouble with the timing and gathering a large audience, but there was a series, and I know The one that I attended was hosted by the Suffolk County Police Department, right? And some of that presentation had to do with responsibility on social platforms and some of the concerns, community-wide concerns that have arisen from social platforms and how we can educate our students about safe use and safe guidelines. And so I can ask Mrs. Pisani to kind of revisit those presentations and maybe replicating them at a different time of day would be helpful for the community.
That would be great. I also have to tell you that I went to Sycamore during the week that they were doing those other presentations when Justin Fernandez, Suffolk County Police, came in. He's incredible. He's incredible with our students. Thank you so much to the Suffolk Police. He came in and he went over that. He went over what is the etiquette, what could get you in trouble, what you shouldn't do, what, not giving out your name or your real name or your address on any of these platforms. I only visited the ones for K to 5 though. I didn't get to the ones that were the high school. I wanted to, I couldn't make it that day, but it was excellent how he did, and it was a lot of that stuff. And I do recall going to these workshops with you. I remember being at one, especially the one about melatonin and the dopamine, and how I remember that was a different one. That was hosted by somebody that Mrs. Pisani brought in, and that was an excellent one.
Thank you, Ms. Puppy. That would be great. Mr. Fasano, welcome. And I do apologize. I know you just got here, but we were actually just having a discussion about the new federal education department, and there are some board members that had some questions. Ms. DiLorenzo.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about, what we've learned over the last few months about Title IX and how it relates to our policy on 0-100 on equal opportunity and non-discrimination. I think that's what it's called. And that we have that sentence in there that says we'll protect all students, including transgender and gender expansive students, and that we are in risk of a possibility of losing federal funding. We're going against Title IX in there. And many districts are doing either leaving the sentence out, it's optional, or they're going with all, because all covers everybody. It includes them. It includes everybody. So at that point, you're covered, whether it's state or whether it's federal, or just removing the sentence, but having that extra piece can put that in non-compliance.
Yeah. Because what we're asking you is also how many of the other districts. So when you're an attorney for many districts, and with this policy that's been back and forth, under the last administration, the policy change was fine. Under this administration, the policy change can present a problem. Other districts of the board members that I've spoken to told me that they were smart enough not to change it. They said, we just left it under the way NYSMA made it, or we left it as all students, because we didn't want to get into the fray of who was included and who wasn't included, especially now with these executive orders coming down from the federal government, which are going to trickle down to the state, which are going to trickle down to many problems, conflicting information back and forth. My question to piggyback her is, how many districts did what we did? Because everybody I've spoken to said that they either went with all or they went with the NYSMA version. Nobody just came up with their own version like we did.
So I would say the majority of the districts will choose either one or two options. It's either because NYSBA in their policy, they say that it's an optional sentence. So it is not legally required for you to do it. So you can either leave it in as is, as per NYSBA, which many districts do. They just adopt the policy without really even looking at it. Just say this is recommended by the New York State School Boards Association, who we pay to provide policy services for us. That's the recommendation that we'll take. Other districts say, well, it's optional. We don't need to have it. We're taking it out in its entirety. And then there were other districts that removed that language and said it was for all students. So I would say the majority just left it as what NYSBA said, because that's what most districts do. If NYSBA is recommending it, that's what you pay NYSBA for as a policy service. But many districts did just take it out completely.
So Connecticut didn't do that, neither or. 3 board members voted to have it changed to something totally different and expand on it.
We have the only one that.
And now we have emails that have come in that people wanted expanded even more. When does it end? Where is the line?
So I would say, as far as what you mean, as far as expanding the policy as I recall it off the top of my head, the paragraph immediately preceding it did cover all types of students, and it did have a very lengthy list of students. So to me, again, I would call it superfluous, the second sentence, because all of the categories in which you were considering were already outlined in the first paragraph. But it is fine, again, if you wanted to put it in the second sentence, that second paragraph, that's fine. That is NISBA's, not so much their recommendation, but they do note it's optional. You don't have to do it.
Do you know any other any other districts offhand that did what Connecticut did? The board majority did. Connecticut didn't do this. There's 5 of us, and 2 of us were adamantly against changing it to accommodate some instead of accommodating all in a neutral manner.
Off the top of my head, no, I cannot.
Okay, we have the Water Authority, Ms. Napolitano-Ferno.
I wanted to thank the Suffolk County Water Authority and Marisol for inviting us in. I got to go to the presentation. It was excellent. It was really great to see that Connecticut High School was bringing in different, this was the science department did this. Originally, I thought it was our career department, because I know at the same time that you were bringing this in, they were bringing in a sonographer they had at the high school, I believe, as well.
It was Women's History Month, and we wanted to bring in women in STEM, so we presented to some science and STEM classes.
That's awesome. But I'm saying I believe the career department, Mrs. Rapone's, I believe they brought in a sonographer, which was also awesome. So it was very nice to see that we're bringing in the career opportunities, giving students a taste of what's out there. I myself learned about all the different jobs that Suffolk County Water Authority actually employs, including attorneys. They have engineers, they have public relations. So really, it's like there was a job for everyone. It was really nice to see how the kids were very engaged. They enjoyed the class, and thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. It was actually really nice to present to the students. I really enjoyed it. Does anybody else have any topics before I go? Okay. I will now open the floor to the I will now open the floor to the open public comment portion of the agenda. I will call individuals forward one at a time. Please wait for my acknowledgement before stepping up to the podium. You should have received a number card from security on your way in. If you have not, please see a security guard in the back of the room. Any person wishing to address the board shall address the board president. Comments should be kept as brief as possible and relate to school matters only. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes for one or more topics. Individual employees, parents, or children should not be identified by name, title, position, grade, or building. The use of foul language and threatening comments will not be tolerated, and the board will consider a recess until order is restored. In accordance with Policy 1230, public comment will not exceed 30 minutes. If there are additional persons wishing to speak, the board may consider a motion to extend the time. Number 1. Number 2.
Good evening. A couple questions. I would like to know if the scholarship scanning into the library is a way to be able to see the usage of the library, since kids do use it to go into the cafeteria and other places, if that's something that can be utilized. Just figured we have that. Why not use it to find out when it's being used? And my other question was, 2 weeks ago at the meeting, we were told that we would be given an update with the situation over at the elementary school, and I was just wondering if there was anything that would be shared with the community, because I know there was a lot of concern with what was going on, and if there was any update that would be shared.
So we will look into monitoring the student IDs, see if they do badge in. The only update I can give you on the elementary school update is that the staff member is back in the classroom. Number 3. Yeah.
Okay. Hi. Been a long time since I'm here. So excuse me if I ask things that are spoken about often that I just don't know, that I'm not caught up with. But I had actually sent an email a while ago regarding the busing, which came up tonight as far as more busing going to Suffolk as opposed to our own. And just so many years in the community and so many friends, I hear constantly that, excuse me, departments like you're saying, special ed, where we maybe can use more help, and we don't have it. But yet, a department like busing has many people up here that can be utilized better. We keep putting out to Suffolk and spending that extra money. One of my concerns is that, that every X amount of years it comes up, people will say, well, why don't we source out to Suffolk, which is, in my opinion, the last thing I ever wanted for my kids while they were here. So I didn't want things to lean that way. We keep giving to Suffolk. In the meantime, from, again, just what I hear is that there are a lot of people in their office. One maybe that just hands out the runs in the morning. One maybe that just does the trip assignments and things like that. So I'm just wondering if we ever get to the point where we look at that department and just tighten it up. Not that anybody's not doing a good job, but again, it's only what I hear. But I've heard consistently over the years, through the years that my children were here even, and my youngest now is 25. So we're out of the district by a good handful of years. And still I hear the same thing in the neighborhoods, and all of a sudden my kids are being picked up by Suffolk now. And so couldn't we just take a look at that department and just see how we could better utilize? They have, a couple of 19As that, if there's 7 or 8 people in that office as people that don't drive every day, 4 or 5 of them, the majority of them are all licensed bus drivers that could be taking runs after they hand out their boards in the morning or whatever. Go take the run. Don't give it to Suffolk. Don't, money in our pocket. And
Just press the button on the right again.
I think as parents, we want our kids to be picked up by our own. Most of them are community people and moms and dads we know and recognize. I don't know. So that was the majority of my thing. Oh, and the library. What the heck is going on? The library should never, ever be closed, Dr. Senimore. Never be closed. And I was wondering, what is the librarian doing? Don't we have like a full day? What's she doing when the library's closed?
So there's many reasons the library is closed. One is just improper coverage, which Mr. Kohler just said we were working on, and we've now gotten the coverage. And a great idea to look at the transportation department. It's always good to give an overview to all of our departments, and giving it once over to the transportation department.
Yeah, save money there and get a helper for the special ed.
Yep. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Number 4.
Hi. So just talking about the library, as someone who goes to the library daily instead of the cafeteria, there is kind of a discrepancy with people going in and out, so that definitely is noticed. But as someone who's coming back from BOCES and has technically a lunch, I have no issues. But everyone else who comes in a little later with food, not with food, from study hall does. And then another thing with the printing, as someone who put in for like 15 scholarships and annoyed the living crap out of my mother, I love you. Hassle going to the library and just sitting there and jamming that printer when I'm at school for 20 minutes in between BOCES and my first class. So it kind of was a little frustrating when so many people are going to the library staff and just asking the same questions, and there's not enough of them for what they do, and we greatly appreciate them, because without them, it would not function whatsoever. So they're definitely understaffed and doing their best, so it's not a short falling on their end, but it was just kind of frustrating when I'm sitting there doing work and I had such an ample amount of time to print, but I wasn't physically able to. So it just kind of felt like a waste of time in my mind. If I am there, why can't I print? Because I do so much work and I should be able to. But yeah, thank you.
Ava, wait, let me ask you something. So you guys can't print in the high schools? right? I mean, like, this is what I'm hearing, that to print, like, if you had to print your 15 scholarships, you wouldn't be able to.
So, for me, when I asked questions regarding scholarships, it was more so, hey, it's online, just go off that. Not like, hey, here's a packet. So when I went to the library to try to, it was just kind of like everyone was so busy, I couldn't really like find someone to do it, or if I did, it would just not work out. But
Okay.
yeah, it wasn't really an accessible thing with so many people being there.
Do you ever, like, just out of curiosity, have you ever tried to print anything in the library and been able to?
So I have, but it kind of caps you out when you, I think, print 3 pages. Or it's, yeah, but normally when I do that, I speak to my resource room teacher and he just does it. I love him, so I don't really deal with that anymore because I just ask him to print it and I.
But we're gonna work on it because
Yes.
the library at the high school
Yes.
was $1.3 million. I keep saying it because I want everyone to hear it. $1.3 million. And there's 5 staff members assigned to the high school that I know of. 5. Maybe 4, but it's definitely 5 normally, but maybe 4 right now. It definitely, it needs to have more allowance for printing. It needs to be more encouraged for all of you to be able to use it. And I'm sorry that it's your senior year and you won't be able to use it more often, but I'm going to fight for everybody else under you.
I'm also gonna allow Ms. Poppy to speak to the library for 1 second.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry, I did get some clarification on the printing piece and what's allowable. So student printing is available for high school and middle school students, and they're able to print to the printer in their school's library only. That's their only option. The high school has a limit of 20 copies per day, and middle school students have a limit of 10 copies per day per student. However, if more is needed, then certainly that can be accomplished at the discretion of the librarian, the library media specialist, or their staff member. But it sounds like there may have been quite a bit of traffic in terms of students who wanted to print or maybe were having issues or problems printing from their devices. That's in black and white only. Color printing is a separate piece. It costs more, and I think that is only at the discretion of the library media specialist.
I would love if we got signs made and we put them up in the library so students knew that they had to ask, because I'm starting to feel like students need, like, if they don't know, if they're unaware, it's just like I was told that study hall kids could go to the library, but they have to go to their grade level administrator to get a pass. That's all good and great, but if a student doesn't know that's what they have to do, and I was told from students that they get it from their study hall teacher. So if a study hall teacher gives them a pass to go to the library, then they're sent back to study hall from the library. So they got a pass from the study. It makes no sense to me at all. So now we're saying you have to go to your grade level admin. I mean, I'm just trying to understand this. There's 1,700 kids there. This is what we're like. Doesn't really sound like this is working, because students don't know, and it's only making it where kids during study hall get sent back to study hall. Again, I really feel like something needs to be done, and I'm not hearing about this at RMS or OBMS. I'm only hearing about this for the high school. So that's an issue too. And again, I've dealt with it as a parent myself, so I know it's actually happening. But it's the fact that I've been hearing about it for 6 months, and I've been saying, oh, why is the library closed? Why is the library closed? The library's closed. And then I actually walk past it and it says it's closed. So it is closed at times, fully closed. I mean, I've actually walked past it to go to a room when we did a classroom. I'm trying to think what committee it was. We did a committee in the classroom. Dr. C, you were there. But we had all the ones in the is that the anti-bullying? It might be the anti-bullying, because I think the students wanted to make sure that they could contribute, which was nice. And it was closed. I literally looked at the library sign up. It says library is closed. Like, so we need to do better. I mean, we need to figure something out. And especially with the printing. I have a senior who I'm sure if I go home and ask, she's going to tell me she had no idea that she could print 20 pages a day for 4 years. That's pretty bad.
And the
Did you
instruction,
know that you had 20 pages you could? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that students are not aware. We need to be more transparent. If that means we put up a sign on the wall that says, students, please ask your librarian, you are entitled to 20 pages a day. You know, like,
well, thank you very much for sharing your experiences, and we will work with the high school administration to try to rectify all these issues and try to let everybody know the use of the library. All right. Can I call for a motion and a second for the Board of Education to move into executive session in accordance with open meetings law to seek legal advice from counsel?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye, have a good night, everybody.
We're going into executive and we are not coming back out for a vote. So have a good night, everybody. Thank you for coming.